Waterlogged on behalf of saltwateraquarium.com. Are you a new hobbyist just starting out in the reefing world? Perhaps you've gone and looked at corals and felt overwhelmed by the sheer number of options that you have to choose from. Further that, maybe you even looked at some of the prices of them and were just like, oh, I don't know if this is something I want to get into because I don't have the confidence that I've got the skill set to take care of these. Well, this video is going to be for you. I'm going to tell you about some corals that I think are great if you're just starting out, that will help you to build your confidence in the reef keeping world. It's going to help you to gain some skills that you may not have. So I'll go over a list of corals, I'll tell you why I love them, and I'm going to tell you what you can learn from them by keeping them. So let's go ahead and get started. First off, that you probably have seen on other lists for beginners is green star polyps, or GSP as they're called. I personally love them because of the movement that they can bring to the tank. When you put them in there, they kind of grow like a mat, so you can put them on the back wall or you can let them take over rocks, and when the flow hits them, it kind of moves around like grass in the wind, and I think that is a fun dynamic to have in any tank. Now, what you can learn from them is that they grow fairly fast, and this is actually a type of coral warfare, so you can learn how you need to watch and manage them so that they don't take over and threaten other corals in your tank. I've actually had these guys, they totally will grow over other corals, they don't even care. So it'll teach you a little bit about coral warfare. Okay, the next item on my list today is mushrooms. Now, there's a couple of different kinds of mushrooms that are out there, but I'm specifically talking about the Discosoma mushrooms. I like that you can get them in a bunch of different colors and a bunch of different textures, and they're relatively affordable. On top of that, they're pretty hardy, and I don't want to say impossible to kill, but it's not that easy. So it'll give you confidence in keeping something. Now, unlike a lot of the other things that you might keep in your tank, you can learn that not all corals are stationary. I talked about the green star polyps having flow, while mushrooms can actually move around the tank until they find an area that you like, and so it's pretty cool to see that happening. It's not a fast process all the time. Sometimes it's pretty slow, but they can migrate around the tank, and so keeping them will allow you to learn about that. Next up on my list is candy cane corals. Now, you can get them in a couple of different patterns, but my personal favorite is the neon green ones. Not only do I like the color, but I also like how they grow. You can start out with a single polyp, and since they branch out, you can end up with a whole large colony after a period of time. But what can you learn from them? Well, one thing about these guys, at least in my past experience, is they're one of the first corals to let me know that something is off with my water parameters. It's always important to pay attention to your fish and your corals because usually they'll let you know if something's wrong. And the candy cane corals did that. A lot of times their nice, fluffy, polyp head will be pulled in tight to that skeletal structure, and that's a good indicator that something's wrong. So that's one reason that I like them, and I think they're a good learning opportunity. Okay, next up is rock flower anemones. Now, a lot of people love rock flower anemones because of their colors. They come in a variety of neons, and they're just beautiful. But one reason I like them is because unlike other anemones, they stay put. Once you place them, they're not going to move around. They're not going to get stuck in power heads or get into places that you don't want them to be, which makes them a learning experience because if you ever do want to keep anemones, it gives you a way to learn about anemones without all of the risks of some of the other ones that move around and can cause problems. Okay, moving on to the fifth coral on my list, and that is a chalice coral. Now, these guys are one of the slower growing corals on this list, but the patterns that they come in and some of the colors are pretty unique. Now, you can actually put these in low light areas and they'll grow just fine. But what can you learn from them? These guys are going to teach you how to place corals. This is another coral that exhibits coral warfare in that they have sweeper tentacles that will sting nearby corals if they get too close. Now, like I said, they're slow growing, so you've got time to figure it out, but it is definitely something that you can learn from. All right, moving on to the next coral, and that would be some of the plating Mataporas. I really like these guys because unlike some of the other corals, you can actually see progress. You know, a lot of times we're keeping these corals and so many of them are slow growing, but that's not the case with the plating Mataporas. They can grow fairly fast and you can feel successful and confident in your skills at keeping corals. Now, what can you learn from them? Well, they're a great coral to learn how to frag. The reason for that is because a lot of times they will accidentally break off, say you bump them while you're cleaning, or maybe a hermit crab or a snail falls on them and a piece cracks off. They'll still go on living. They don't have that many issues. So if you wanted to frag off a piece and learn how to frag, you can have Mataporas in multiple places in your tank or share one with a friend. Okay, now on to the last item on my list, and that is a green Simularia leather. Leathers in general are pretty good corals for beginners, but I like these because of the way they grow. It's not just horizontal or vertical, they are going to take up space all throughout the water column. And this gives you the opportunity to learn how to monitor and manage the lighting and the flow in your tank. Things aren't going to stay static the way that you first set them up as. So as some of these corals grow, the light that other corals around them and the flow that the other corals around them are going to receive will change, which means you need to monitor that. If you have to cut them back or trim them or move corals around in your tank, this is a good coral to teach you how to do that. All right, that is going to conclude the list of corals that I've got for this video. If you found this interesting, leave a comment, let me know if you're already keeping some of these corals or if you learned on these corals. Let me know what your experiences are. All right, this has been Hillary for Waterlogged on behalf of saltwateraquarium.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.